So the transmission tester I purchased has the required adapters to screw into the test ports on the 722.3 transmission. However, this supplied gauge is not 100% suitable. I mean, it will give you a rough idea if it's close to spec, but I wouldn't be using it to adjust it to spec. The reason being, this is a 300 psi gauge, and that is quite ridiculous indeed. The 722.3 transmission requires resolution down to 0.2 bar on your test gauge, and that is simply not offered on this gauge. The spec of my transmission with the vacuum line from the modulator box disconnected, engine idling with shifter handle in D or R is 3.8 bar, which is approximately 55 psi. I can see 55 psi by way of the first graduation mark after 50. However, if I needed to adjust that plus or minus 0.2 bar, I would have no hope in hell with this included gauge. Now, this is a 1/4 inch national pipe taper thread connection. It has the sharp threads of NPT. I'm having a hell of a time trying to find a suitable gauge in Australia because eBay sellers here seem to be morons and don't know the difference between NPT and BSP. Not only is this one not even tapered, but it was advertised as NPT, and it absolutely isn't. It has the rounded threads of BSP or whatever the hell that other alternative is that I'm not interested in. It cannot and will not screw into the hose that I have for my test kit. It's a shame because this would be absolutely perfect. It's an 85 psi gauge, and the bar markings are in 0.2 bar graduations. 3.8 would be absolutely and very easily identified on this gauge, but unfortunately I can't use it because I don't even know what the hell that thread is, so I don't know what adapter to buy. But if someone out there in America land has 1/4 inch NPT gauges that are 85 psi, even better if it's a nice and big one and it also is dual scale and has bar on it as well, I would love to hear from you. Send me an email and I'd be happy to buy a couple from you as long as the price is reasonable. I have got my contact details in my About page and also my postal address. I don't actually have any transmission issues. It's more a curiosity. My red car transmission was rebuilt professionally before I purchased that transmission, so it works fine. And after my reseal of it, it still works fine. It shifts nice and smoothly and does everything it should. However, my Blue Black 124, it does shift extremely firmly. I just want to make sure that someone hasn't played around with and jacked up the modulation pressure. I have that suspicion because the reverse was worn out on that car when I first got it. It was grinding metal on metal, and I suspect some dumbass has increased the modulation pressure to compensate for that in the past instead of fixing it properly. I have since fixed it properly and it works beautifully, but it's a bit too firm. I just want to know if someone has played with it or if I have a vacuum leak. If it's a vacuum leak, that's something else we can test for with a vacuum gauge. At the time, it'll be very easy on the hoist to test both cars and see what is going on. There may not be any issue at all. It may just be the way the two transmissions are. I know that Australia version transmissions are different. They're unique. I don't know in what way. It doesn't seem to be mentioned in any of the service materials, but I know that the Australia version transmission is unique. Maybe it just did have firmer shifting. I don't know what the car even was that the transmission in red was in the past, so that's a mystery. I don't believe there's any way of tracing the original VIN from the transmission number, so I don't know. In any case, if someone can help me with a gauge like this with the correct thread, and even better if it's nice and large, because all of these Chinesey ones all seem to be this size. If you've got a nice big one with the correct thread, once again, I'd love to hear from you.